The new two-year state budget includes a $100 million state tax credit for low-income housing, income tax deductions for savings accounts for home ownership, and a tax credit to build more single-family affordable housing. But the budget wasn't all good news for advocates for people experiencing homelessness and low-income Ohioans struggling with housing costs. And a report out this week says those numbers are growing. Amy Riegel is the executive director of the Coalition on Homelessness and Housing in Ohio.
Today, a report came out from the Ohio Finance Agency, or OFA, and it is their annual needs assessment for housing in the state of Ohio. And what it shows is that there are more individuals who are paying more than 50% of their income on household costs. And that's just rent and utilities, not counting all the other things that you have to spend money for in your home. And so that number between renters, 700,000 are paying more than 50%. And then if you add in homeowners, it's over 1 million individuals who are paying more than 50% of their income on rent. So that number is one that is definitely not headed in the right direction. The other point is that between the year 2020 and 2021, we lost 15,000 units of affordable housing. And so when we think about the new tools that we'll talk about that came in with the budget, what that shows is even with those new tools, if we are losing 15,000 units a year, we're not even going to be able to keep up with what is being lost.
The report also says that rent is now higher in any year on record other than 2021, even when adjusted for inflation. Let's talk about the lack of units that are available for these folks. I mean, the budget has a tax credit that it's expected to produce around 4,000 affordable rental units. That's a little bit short, more than a little bit short.
Yes, so that is the game that we're trying to play right now and trying to play catch up on. So with those loss of units in the state of Ohio, we have a deficit of 270,000 units of affordable housing for just individuals who are extremely low income. And so we need to build more housing. We need more units. It's not just about how fast rent is rising. It's also about what is available when you go look online to find a place to live.
And the report also says 25% of renters are spending at least half their income on housing. So you've got a huge number of people who are spending far more than the recommended amount that people should be putting toward housing. But let's talk a little bit more about the budget. There is this $100 million state tax credit program for low-income housing. What will that do, and is that going to be enough?
It is an excellent step forward for the state of Ohio. So the state of Ohio will join about one of 24 other states that have a state housing tax credit. So it does move them in the right direction of tools in place to help build affordable housing. The proposal that was passed was for $100 million, which sounds like a lot of money, and it is, but that will only create about 4,000 units of housing. And there was a proposal by the House for $500 million, and that had some support and definitely was able to move forward in the House. We're hoping that maybe this initial tax credit is just a baby step and we can continue to show how successful it can be and then build it as we go.
There are also income tax deductions in the budget for savings accounts for home ownership. Does that help?
It does. So housing is an ecosystem, and if at any point one part of the ecosystem isn't functioning to its highest, then the whole system gets thrown off. So part of what we're seeing in the rental market is that more people are entering because they can't move into home ownership. So if we can create that pathway, smooth that pathway into home ownership for more individuals, that will definitely help the rental market also.
The budget does some things that you don't like, though. It cuts 81% of the $16 million that goes to a program that provides housing assistance for pregnant women and families. Aren't there other programs that help that specific population, those people?
Yes, this funding, though, was specifically for a program called Healthy Beginnings at Home, which is actually a research project. So not only is it providing the assistance, but it's collecting a lot of data, doing high fidelity research around the impact on that rental assistance in improving birth outcomes. And so it is a national model first of its kind to be doing this work. And what it would do is to create a model for how we could blend and braid state and federal funding to better be able to address housing needs across the state, especially for pregnant women. So reducing that means that the research gets pretty much stopped, because we really need the whole funding to be able to move the research forward.
There was a last-minute amendment that would have abolished the Ohio Housing Finance Agency, which is where this initial report we started talking about came from. That was removed. What would that have done if that had gone forward?
It would have consolidated work within housing to a new office, the Office of Housing Transformation, and it would have reported under the Ohio Department of Development. OFA, as we know it today, would have been abolished. And so that would have taken many of the responsibilities of OFA and put them under the direction of political elected officials across the state, including the treasurer, the auditor, the governor, some to reporting to the Senate president and the Speaker of the House. There were a lot of different people involved, and it was very last minute. It was not something that had public hearings or had public input. And so though there were threads of the idea that could have shown promise, this kind of quick, dark of night way of getting it into the budget was not the best approach into addressing such a large consolidation of work, of impact, and of possibility across the state.
Is the real solution to a lot of these problems outside the housing area in terms of trying to get more people into better paying jobs, getting them more training? I mean, is that a part of this? And what can be done about that if it is?
So the work of Jobs Ohio has been tremendous over the last few years. And now what we see is that they have been able to create more jobs in Ohio than we currently have people to fill them. And so as we think about Intel and Honda and Abbott all expanding their operations in the state of Ohio, what we know is we need housing in places where it doesn't exist today, because those are oftentimes in more rural or suburban areas. We need different types of housing, and we're going to need more people to come to the state to fill those jobs. And so we're now at that tipping point of there's going to be jobs that are being created, but jobs have to have somewhere to sleep at night, and we need to create those places today.
And what about the people who are here, though, that are not getting those jobs, who are working gig jobs and working lower income jobs? Is there a solution here that involves helping those people get more money, essentially?
Yes, we do need to think about how we close this gap, because if you think about any of those jobs that are out there, the 10 most common jobs in the state of Ohio do not pay enough for a person, or 8 of them do not pay enough for a person to afford a modest 2-bedroom apartment. But if you looked at that list, there's not one of those jobs that you would say people shouldn't be filling. And so we have to figure out a way for wages to catch up, or for there to be some type of stopgap in between that helps people balance their wages and their costs so that they can live and thrive within our community.